Is infamous, not just for the 2001 attacks, but also for what happened when terrorists raided the U.S. compound in Benghazi, Libya in 2012. We have new information tonight on the strength of the evidence against the only suspect in the case and whether the prosecution may be in trouble. Here's Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge.
The administration promised swift justice after the murder of Ambassador Chris Stevens, Foreign Service Officer Sean Smith, and former Navy SEALs Ty Woods and Glenn Doherty. But 2 years later, the U.S. Attorney's Office wants more time to prosecute Ahmed Abu Khattala, the only suspect in U.S. custody.
You're dealing with classified information and a terrorist who was part of al-Qaeda for 2 decades. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that we've ended up in this place.
Republican Congressman Mike Pompeo, who sits on the House Intelligence and Benghazi Select Committees, believes a lot of the classified evidence will never get into court, warning that the case may be weak and in trouble because of a political decision by the Obama White House.
When you try and force upon a terrorist a legal system that wasn't meant or intended to deal with the crimes committed that night in Benghazi, Libya, that the results are a mess.
This week, government prosecutors filed a motion to bypass the speedy trial rule, and the judge granted a 6-week delay, citing the fact that the attack, the evidence, and the witnesses are overseas. Former FBI Director Robert Mueller, under whose watch the case was gathered, recently implied there are only a handful of witnesses against Khattala and that the FBI faced blocks in Libya.
That makes it very, very difficult to identify witnesses and then to get to witnesses. And one could assume that if you did have witnesses, you try to interview them in places where they would not be killed the next day.
A leading analyst suspects politics played a role in the timing.
Here, it looks to me like they have indicted, but they're still building the case at the same time. They're running on parallel tracks, which is not your typical U.S. Attorney's Office approach.
Even the Attorney General suggested after Khattala's capture in June that evidence continued to be collected.
I'd say the investigation is still obviously ongoing, but we're in a good place. I think we have a good case.
The U.S. no longer has a diplomatic presence in Libya, having temporarily closed the embassy in Tripoli this summer. That will not make it easy to get evidence and witnesses to federal court, Brad.